I never imagined that a joke could end up ruining my marriage, but here I am, Wanda, 34, and I used to think that my husband James would never leave me no matter what. We had been married for 4 years, and I always thought that we had a solid relationship. He was the calm in my chaos, a laid-back guy who never fussed over anything. Perhaps I took that for granted. But the night everything fell apart, we were at his friend Mike's house party. It was supposed to be a fun, casual night with drinks, music, and old friends catching up, but James never really enjoyed large social gatherings, so he went for me because he knew I loved them. The evening began well enough. I was laughing while sipping my wine and talking to Mike's wife, Lisa, when the topic of relationships came up. Someone dumbly asked, "Do you think your man could protect you if something went down?" I didn't even consider it before I spoke, so I just laughed and said, "James, oh please, if we got jumped in an alley, I'd probably have to protect him." The room burst into laughter, and I wasn't even trying to be mean. It was just a joke. I didn't realize that James, who had just entered, had heard everything I said. I saw his expression change for a moment, but he didn't say anything. He just grabbed a beer, sat down, and pretended to be normal. But something wasn't right. For the rest of the evening, he hardly spoke. He wasn't pouting or furious, but there was this distance as if something had snapped inside him. I should have realized, but I didn't. Instead, I continued leaning into the joke. I mean, nudge Lisa. He has trouble opening jars. What would he do in a fight? James gave me a small smile, but it wasn't genuine. I assumed he would move on, as he always does, but when the party was finished, he simply took his coat and left for the car without saying anything. I rolled my eyes and sneered, thinking, I guess someone's in their feelings. Lisa gave me one of those, "You might have taken it too far" looks, but I chose to ignore it, thinking he would be all right. However, the drive home was quiet, and I tried striking up a conversation, but James only nodded or responded with one word. At last, I sighed and exclaimed, "Oh my God, James, are you really upset about that joke?" I was joking when he tightened his hold on the driving wheel without turning to face me. It goes beyond the jest. "Wanda," he finally said, his voice calm. "Too calm. It's the way you talk about me like I'm some useless joke of a man. Do you even respect me at all?" I blinked, caught off guard. Of course I do. "Babby, come on. We tease each other all the time. You know I love you." He shook his head. "No, Wanda. You tease me?" I just take it that silence hit hard. I didn't know what to say, so I laughed awkwardly. "You're being dramatic. You're seriously mad. Because I made a joke in front of Mike and Lisa." "No," he said, pulling into the driveway. "I'm mad because it's not just a joke, it's who you are. You put me down in front of people all the time, and I'm done pretending in. It doesn't bother me before I could even respond." He got out of the car, went inside, and shut the door behind him the next morning. I expected him to be over it. He always was, but this time was different. He wasn't just cold. He was distant, quiet, like he was somewhere else entirely. "Are you still really angry?" He stared at me across the kitchen table and said, "I don't think this is working anymore," as I snorted and grabbed my coffee. "My stomach dropped. What us?" he said, setting his coffee down. "I don't think I want to do this anymore, Wanda." I genuinely laughed and said, "Come on, James, you're not abandoning me over a joke." He repeated it, saying that it was the last night. There had been years of jokes, years of you making me feel less of a man around you, and years of you making me the punchline. He nodded and stood up, saying, "Yeah, Wanda," as I crossed my arms defensively. "So what, you're just going to leave, after everything?" I was staring at him, expecting him to laugh, expecting him to move on like he always did. But instead, he collected his jacket and vehicle keys and went to the door. "Don't be silly, James," I snapped. "We can talk about this." He sighed. "No, Wanda, you talk. I listen. I've been listening for years, and I finally realized something I deserve better." And with that, he walked out. Just like that. Days passed. then weeks at first. I refused to believe he was serious. I called Lisa, expecting her to tell me James was just cooling off, that he'd come back, but she didn't. Instead, she hesitated before saying, "Honestly, Wanda, I think he's done." I scoffed. "Oh, please, he just needs time." "No." She said, her voice softer. "I think he needed a wake-up call, and I think last night was it. It took me another week to really let it sink in. James wasn't coming back. He stopped answering my calls. My texts went unread when I went to his office. His assistant politely told me he'd left early. He was shutting me out, and for the first time I started to wonder, had I really pushed him that far? The answer was obvious. Yes, I had. I'd spent so much time treating him like he was lucky to have me, that I never stopped to realize I was lucky to have him. But by the time I did, it was too late. Now, sitting alone in our half-empty apartment, scrolling through old pictures of us, I realized the biggest joke wasn't the one I made at that party. The biggest joke was thinking he'd always be there no matter what. Turns out the man I thought was weak, he was stronger than I ever gave him credit for, and I was the fool who only realized it after he walked away. Before you find out what happens next, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We share true stories like this with you every day, and your encouragement enables us to continue producing these powerful and poignant tales. Sign up today to ensure you don't miss any updates.